Hello, welcome. Thank you for joining us. Welcome to your lunchtime inspiration, the Connecticut Green Bank. We are hosting our webinar series highlighting 3 successful and wildly motivating community projects right here in our Connecticut backyard. I'm Emily Basham with the Connecticut Green Bank. And this webinar is part of our Green Bank's 2021 webinar series themed the Renewable Energy of Community. If you've joined one of our previous webinars, you know we've taken this theme in many different directions, celebrating Earth Day with Connecticut mayors, chatting about policy with Energy Gang podcast Catherine Hamilton, and sessions on clean tech and environmental justice. Today's webinar rings true to this theme, the truest, in my opinion, of the renewable energy of community. And if we really think about that phrase, renewable energy of community, it really evokes this notion that there's energy around us, close to us, and that energy returns to refresh our own energy, refresh our community, renewing and connecting us. These 3 projects do just that. They bring fellow residents together around an idea. They solve unique challenges, making a more resilient and vibrant community. So today we're going to hear about a solar project on a nursery school in New Haven, the first annual Bridgeport Film Festival, and a labyrinth built at the Sterling Street Sanctuary in Hartford. But this webinar isn't just about highlighting these projects so we all know like the cool stuff that's going on in our state. These speakers and their projects will renew your energy and provoke you to think about what idea have you had to change your street or your neighborhood, and they'll show you that it can be done. So before I pass the mic to our speakers, I want to provide some background on the organization and the platform that brought all of these ideas to life. Hopefully you all already know that we have a really great organization in our state called Sustainable CT. It's a nonprofit that works with Connecticut towns and cities to make them more resilient and vibrant. They provide a menu of sustainability actions, and they also provide grants, technical assistance, and tons of resources to support towns as they actually go to pursue those actions. And of course, they're recognizing towns for their hard work through a certification. To date, 124 of Connecticut's 169 towns are registered, and 64, are certified through the program. Sustainable CT is really the primary organization supporting our towns to be more sustainable, resilient, healthy, inclusive, and just the types of towns that we all really want to live in. So if you haven't already, you could visit sustainableCT.org and see if your town is involved in this program. You can see a little map on the top right corner. But if you visit their website, you could see who in your town is involved and what they've achieved so far, and also check out some of the actions that could be implemented in your community. Sustainable CT also hosts the Community Match Fund, which is available to all towns registered in the program. The Community Match Fund is an online crowdfunding platform very similar to GoFundMe, except they provide a dollar-for-dollar match from a whole network of sponsors, including us at the Connecticut Green Bank. So any community member of a town that's registered with Sustainable CT whether you're participating in the town's sustainability efforts or not, can participate in the Community Match Fund and implement a highly visible project. So today we're going to hear from 3 people who had an idea, created a campaign on the Match Fund website, and funded their project in 90 days or less. The Community Match Fund, in just 1 year, has invested over $400,000 in 83 community-led sustainability projects throughout the state, and that investment has leveraged an additional almost $500,000 in local crowdfunding donation. And those donations are coming from over 2,700 residents and local businesses to support these projects. So this is a lot of dollars coming into a lot of community projects that are also supported by a ton of residents and businesses, truly a grassroots movement. And the Green Bank is really proud to be a strategic partner of Sustainable CT and to support the Match Fund. All right, without further ado, let's hear about these projects. Please do use the chat feature to put in any questions or comments that you have throughout the presentations. We're going to hear from these 3 speakers until about 1 o'clock, and then we'll spend 15 minutes or so on Q&A. So I'm going to pass the mic to Matt DeFosi, who lives here in New Haven with his wife, Lisa, and their 3 kids that are 10, 7, and 4. Other than being a dad, Matt is an actuary working with the disability insurance industry. He is the treasurer of the Westville Community Nursery School, and he's a commissioner of the New Haven Port Authority. So I'm going to turn it over to Matt, but he'd like to show a video first. So I'm going to try and cue up this video about the Westville Community Nursery School and the solar project that they implemented through the Community Match Fund.
There as well, but I think, well, if you're interested in looking up, wanting to see the video yourself, I think you can search for Westville Community Nursery School Solar. You probably find it on Vimeo. Anyhow, I am Matt DeFosi. I am a parent first, and I volunteer my time on the Westville Community Nursery School board, serving as treasurer. But this project that I have helped out with was to get solar panels on our school. So I want to talk with you about what we did and how we got there, and how Sustainable CT played an absolutely critical role in making it happen. So we can move on to the next slide. That's the video. I think we want to go one beyond that. There we go. Okay, so Westville Community Nursery School, otherwise known as WCNS. We are a nonprofit nursery school that is celebrating its 50th anniversary this year. It has been right inside of the Westville village that entire time. And it truly is a community anchor. You know, if you live in this neighborhood, you definitely know of this school. The community is incredibly small here, and the degrees of separation between you and another family from another generation where they went to this nursery school is one. You absolutely know people who know people, and it's a community stalwart. So it's a typical nursery school, ages 3 to 5 attending. What's unique about the school is that it's one single classroom of about 25 to 30 kids, depending on who, when, what day of the week or what time of year. And there's 4 full-time teachers and an executive director. So instead of smaller classrooms where it's 8 kids in a classroom or something, it's one large with 25 to 30. What I like to think of it as, having been in the classroom myself, it's controlled chaos, as any large group of 3 to 5-year-olds would be. But the teachers are amazing and truly have a pretty special thing going there. So I could talk about the school and how the school operates for a long time, but we don't have the time to do that. So we're going to talk a little bit about the finances and the project. So in terms of how the school operates financially, we rely on tuition from families. I mean, that is the number one source of revenue that we get. We get some assistance through, we have some school readiness grants from the city of New Haven that they get from the state, so that we can bring in children with that have more financial need. So that's one source of revenue too. But in terms of fundraising and donations, it's historically been really small. So that's part of the story here. You can move to the next slide, please. So what were we trying to do? Well, 5 years ago, the school moved into where their current location is. It is a former bar. So those of you who are familiar with the Westville neighborhood, it used to be a bar called the Owl's Nest most recently. I think it had changed a bunch of owners since then. And the bar was moving out, and we needed the place to go. The place we were renting 5 years ago was not willing to host the nursery school anymore, and so we figured out a way to purchase the building. And certainly we are mortgaged on it, but it is not. But it is owned by the school right now, so which is cool. When we did that, it was obviously a very expensive endeavor for a nonprofit nursery school to purchase a building. There was a lot of renovation that needed to be done to convert it from a bar to a nursery school, as you can imagine. We had to take out the taps and the kegs, for instance. That was one of the most important parts. But all kidding aside, we did what we could to renovate the building, but the roof was definitely something that was going to be on the near term for needing to be replaced, and we knew that. So to celebrate 50 years of being in the school, the board and the director all wanted to raise the roof, say, and have a fundraising celebration in honor of the 50th anniversary. So when we were setting out to do that, we said, well, wait a minute. If we're replacing a roof and we have a chance to do something that's longer lasting and sustainable and good for the environment, good for the school, can we put solar panels on at this time? Well, the answer was yes, we absolutely want to. But the problem was that solar is expensive still, and it's even more expensive if you're a nonprofit. Well, why is that? Well, I have some more on the next slide. You could move, please. So why is it hard for nonprofits to do a solar project? Well, solar prices have dropped a lot in the last few years. Manufacturing of panels has come down significantly. But tax breaks are still the key to making them affordable on private homes, to most anyway, or to making the math work of making sure you get a return on your investment in solar panels. So the way the government has stepped in to make the financials of that work is by offering tax breaks, which is great because homeowners can affordably put solar on their home. And they get paid back in the form of tax breaks when they do so. But nonprofits, for very good reasons, are not taxed. But when you're not taxed, there's no tax break to be had. So the financials don't make a lot of sense. So it's a very big financial investment without the tax break. It still might make sense, but we're talking about a large amount of money for, in our case, just a single nursery school. We're not a large nonprofit. So anyway, we were kind of stuck. We needed to find a path here that made the finances work and allowed us to get access to enough money to be able to do this. Not only were we doing solar, we were replacing our roof as well. So all those things combined, we were looking at upwards of $32,000, which is, you know, it's about $1,000 per kid. That's a lot. So next slide, please. So nope, that was 2 slides. There we go. Okay. So after several dead ends, we really explored a lot of different options. We were connected through a former parent, actually, Mike Ewell, to Sustainable CT. And when we ended up chatting with Abe, we found out that we were a really good match for each other. So they listened to our goals and decided that, yeah, we could do a fundraiser together where Sustainable CT would match donations. And again, our project was going to cost around $32,000 for the new roof and solar panels. And Sustainable CT said, okay, if you can raise 15, we'll give you 15, which would get us just about all the way there. A $30,000 fundraiser sounded great, but we've never raised any more than like $3,000. And like in 1 year, maybe 5,000 if we're really lucky. So we are not a school that has historically done a lot of fundraising. So this is a pretty tall order for our school to achieve. But we thought it was important enough, and we thought we had a good story, and it was all about the messaging of the story. We're trying to build something that will last into the future, do something responsible for our environment. And we had this amazing opportunity in front of us with Sustainable CT. Next slide, please. So, could we compel donors with our story? And the answer was a resounding yes. We worked hard, we rolled up our sleeves, we knocked on a lot of doors and to get people to participate, but we were able to do it. Our message was all right there in those bullet points. We're in our community and we are invested to staying here. And it was very much, the nursery school itself is really community focused. And this project was really community focused. We wanted our community to rally behind this. We care about our planet, especially like what better message to send our young kids than what we're doing to try and make our school sustainable for years to come by doing a solar project. We are so excited for when we actually do this project about all the lessons that are going to come from the installation. It's going to be really amazing for the kids. We had a really unique opportunity in front of us with Sustainable CT. This was not going to work without these matching contributions. There's no way we were going to raise $30,000 to make it happen. But 15, what seemed achievable. And again, we had a chance to send a message to our children that you can do something to help the planet. And yeah, it's just one small piece. And there's a lot more to do in the world to get there. But if we're sending these 30 kids out into kindergarten and beyond with the message that, yeah, our school did something about it. What a great thing. So we were able to raise over $15,000 and earned the entire matching contribution from Sustainable CT. And trust me, they were thrilled to give the money away. That's what they're there for. They have these funds. They want to see really good projects succeed. And they were our biggest cheerleaders the whole time. So they were really amazing partners as we did this. So our roof has been replaced, and the solar panels are coming fall or maybe early winter as we get this off the ground. So we are beyond thrilled. What a way to celebrate our 50th year. We're proud, and we've done something that the school has never done before, and we couldn't have done it without Sustainable CT. So that's all for me. Thanks for your time. Really honored to be here.
Thanks, Matt. Thanks for sharing the project at the Westville Community Nursery School. Really amazing project and message to send to the kids. They can just grow up getting used to seeing panels on roofs. Want to thank you for sharing that. We also just shared the link to the video that we attempted to show in the chat. It's really cute video, really pulls at the heartstrings, and the just screaming thank yous at the end, just I dare you to not smile. So
I
thank
have
you
a
so much for sharing that.
I have a child in that video, Emily, and we were not above using small cute children to help sell our story. They were our best asset.
Well, good. I'm sure it worked well on the community match fund and you got your project funded quickly, and it sounds like panels are almost on the roof. So we're excited for you, and thank you so much for sharing that. I'm going to just switch over to our next speaker, Jason, and he also has a video teed up. We will try to show as well. But first, let me introduce Jason A. Coombs. He is a New York City and Connecticut-based actor, filmmaker, and teaching artist. His television pilot entitled Chasers was a semi-finalist at the 2017 Independent Television Festival and made it to the second round of the 2018 Macro Lab Screenwriting Contest, sponsored by The Blacklist. He's produced a handful of award-winning short films that have premiered in over 24 festivals worldwide. As an actor, he was most recently seen in the independent film Pretenders, streaming on Amazon Prime. When not performing or working on set, Jason is writing original pieces that he can never finish and exploring New York City. In 2020, he became one of the founding members of the artistic director of the first annual Bridgeport Film Festival, which he'll be sharing with us today as the project that went through the Community Match Fund. So Jason, welcome. I'm going to try and hit your video. Sorry about the sound, but take it away, Jason.
It's all good. Thank you so much. Thanks for having me, and thanks to everybody for tuning in. This is a really cool panel to be a part of, so I really appreciate the invite. As you all know, I'm the founder, producer, and artistic director of the Bridgeport Film Fest. I was fortunate to partner with a local nonprofit organization called Groundwork Bridgeport, which I'm also on the board of, to bring this initiative to life. And as most people in Connecticut know, Bridgeport has like a negative reputation in the media and to many folks in the greater community. But as someone who's grown up here, that's not the Bridgeport that I know, or like when I talk to some of my friends, like that's not the Bridgeport that we know or we see in the media all the time. For example, diversity, especially in film and TV right now, right? That's like a buzzword that everyone likes to use about how diverse their works and their projects are. But like growing up in Bridgeport, diversity is all I've ever known. You know, I was fortunate to go to schools with kids who look like me, but also, you know, white kids, brown kids, Asian, Hispanic, Middle Eastern. I had teachers and I had principals that looked like me, which was, I didn't realize that was a thing for a lot of, you know, Black people didn't have teachers and principals that looked like them until I got older, and I was like, that's so bizarre. I was able to learn a second language from like 5th grade through high school, but please don't test me on my Spanish skills because I'm very, very rusty. But that's like the cool thing about growing up in Bridgeport is that there's just so much culture, so much diversity, and so many great people. And it's a thriving art scene that's here that I'm so thankful to be a small part of with the Bridgeport Film Fest now. Working professionally in film and TV over the last decade, I always had an interest in sharing my love of film and writing and the arts in general with the community I called home. I've always had this kind of idea or fantasy about being like an Oprah type person, right? Coming back to Bridgeport and being able to give like millions of dollars to the city and like open up one of those abandoned theaters that's been closed down, like the Majestic. But working with mentors over the past couple of years and getting a little bit older and hopefully a little bit more mature, I realized you don't have to have Oprah type money to make a difference. So teaming up with the local nonprofit Groundwork, who already does a lot of revitalization of the city, they like to empower local students to plant trees in Seaside Park. They clean up graffiti and trash along the beach. They participate in walking clubs with people of all ages. That was a way of showing my love for Bridgeport was a no-brainer, working with Groundwork to bring the Film Fest to life. And the aim of the Film Fest was to support art-based community and economic revitalization, right? Bringing people from within and outside the city to enjoy films and art and culture and contribute to a sense of vibrancy that helps the economic development. While groundwork is known for its interventions in the physical environment, like I said earlier, we all know the impact that the economic decline in the city has had, right? The negative social implications, including a lack of activities that contribute to the overall positive quality of life. The Film Fest was our I guess holistic approach to urban regeneration, right? Reflecting our desire to improve upon the city's social, cultural, and economic conditions by attracting visitors from outside the city while uniting the community in a time of isolation. You know, the past 18 months has been very hard for most people. Um, our unofficial theme for the festival was to change the narrative. Like I said before, Bridgeport in the media has this negative reputation, but a lot of the people that I know, especially young people growing up here, like the young kids my niece's age, don't agree with that, you know. So a big goal that we had with starting a film festival was to empower the residents of this community to tell their own stories through art and specifically through filmmaking and screenwriting. But like any kind of art was important to us, right? We are fortunate to be living in a time where everyone has access to one of these, or almost everyone has access to one of these, a smartphone, where you can film or you can document your world, your point of view, and get it out to the masses through the internet. And that's why we accepted submissions from not just Connecticut artists, but across North America and from 29, I think, other countries. We had 390 submissions and ended up selecting 71 short films from 12 countries to screen in person and virtually in our hybrid festival. They were broken up into different blocks with common themes such as, you know, Black Stories Matter, or The Future is Female, right, highlighting female filmmakers, or You Are Who You Are, queer stories, highlighting the LGBTQ community. Family Ties, which were like films and music videos that kind of had that theme of family and what family means to different people. We also had like a horror night for our horror fans called Dark Night of the Soul. We also screened a feature-length documentary called Unseen, which is about a local Connecticut wheelchair-bound artist named Jamie Patrone. She's an actress and a singer and a dancer, and it's about her journey, right? The challenges and the triumphs she faces as she's a person in a wheelchair trying to make a career in the arts. We also screened the Disney film Moana as a way to attract folks who may not know what a film festival was, or may not be into like the independent films, who may not know like what that world was like. So we wanted to have something accessible for like everyone. Like everyone knows Moana, everyone knows Disney. That was a good way to bring people in, you know, make it inclusive rather than exclusive, right? Um, by seeing stories, I guess, from a worldwide cultural lens, and then having the multiple Q&As that we had with the filmmakers and the panel discussions. Like we had an all-female panel called Women in Film and TV, where we had female producers and directors and writers and actors and cinematographers all talking about their journeys and the challenges that they face being in a unfortunately male-dominated industry, as the film industry is right now. We had a Filming in Connecticut and Beyond panel where we brought in independent filmmakers of all ages and genders to come and talk about how they make the work that they make, and how they do it on a shoestring budget, so we can hopefully inspire people to tell their own stories here as well. You know, how they get money how they raise money to make their films, how they get their crews. We had a film making workshop, which was, again, how to use one of these. They give people the foundation of using a camera phone to start making your own films, right? There were like 4 sessions on a Saturday, about 45 minutes each, which I thought was really cool. And they were like really well attended over the weekend. We had a Bridgeport Gives Back panel where we invited 8 working artists that were originally from Bridgeport or currently live in Bridgeport. They were filmmakers, they were actors, musicians, a teaching artist, our local author. They all talked about their journeys as artists, right, and how they survive in an industry that's not always supportive of people making their own art, and how they do that so successfully and so well. And being from Bridgeport originally, that was like so kind of inspiring for me to see as well, right? That these people have made it, right? Whatever it is for them, and they were able to come back to the city and talk about their experiences, and hopefully that inspires people to share their love of the arts as well. And to know that being an artist is not just a pipe dream, right? It's something attainable, and seeing people from your community do it, I think that's very inspiring and something we really wanted to share as well as part of this whole festival. We also have a fund that we are giving away about 5 scholarships of $2,000 to students in high school, 4 high school students and 1 Housatonic Community College student who are pursuing the arts, as a way to, like, you know, help them out, give them a little bit of money so they can keep pursuing their dream while in school. And then, as we said before, the last 18 months have been so tough for so many people, so much isolation, and we thought it would be a great way to celebrate, you know, things getting better. You know, it was in July of this year before the Delta variant kind of shook things up again. So it was like kind of good timing to get people out of their houses, get people dressed up for the first time in over a year and a half. You know, people got to go on the red carpet and got to take pictures. And there's very community oriented, you know, getting to see people they haven't seen in a while. It's also the 200th anniversary of Bridgeport this year. So it was like a really big celebration. And besides just the actual physical festival, that was, you know, the 3 days in person and the 7 days virtually, it's also, we had so many people from Bridgeport that were volunteers that were working on this throughout the pandemic. So like a lot of the people who were screeners or who were on the fundraising team or the programming team or the planning team, there were people who were jurors. They were all volunteering over the past, you know, over a year to make this possible. And so many people said this gave them some joy in a time where it was so much uncertainty and so much negativity out in the world. You can go to the next slide. They were just showing some images of the different films that we screened. It's pretty similar to what you saw in the video. And then you can go to the next one, which I'm sorry, I kind of skipped these. There's just some pictures of our panels and workshops with our filmmakers and our Q&As. In the bottom middle there, that's Jamie Patron, who the Unseen documentary is about. The top one in the middle, that's our Bridgeport Gives Back panel. The top left was our Women in Film and TV panel. You can go to the next one. It's our special events. You know, we had an award show for our filmmakers. You know, people love to be celebrated and be made to feel special. You know, I think making a film is a very special thing, and hopefully that was inspiring to people. You know, we had a DJ that was there for our networking events, spinning some live music. We had a live art installation where a local artist, Lewis, he's from Stratford, Connecticut, he did a live painting over the course of the day on Saturday of Chadwick Boseman. They were able to auction off to someone. Which was also really cool. Like, people were taking pictures and, you know, they were watching him, asking him questions as he was painting all day. It was all pretty special. We were fortunate to raise over $48,000 in total for this festival. It was, you know, a lot of grants and sponsorships and donations and crowdfunding, and of course, the Sustainable CT matching grant of $7,500 that we got was so beneficial. It was able for us to, you know, book our venue, get our venue booked, which was the beautiful Klein Memorial Auditorium. And like Matt was saying, they were so supportive. Abe especially was just so helpful in answering questions and giving feedback on our applications and whatnot. Like, it was so awesome. And I guess to wrap up, we were very proud, and honestly, we were low-key shocked that we were able to get around 600 people in person over the course of the three days in person during the pandemic. You know, we were like kind of just like, okay, we're not really sure what's going to happen. We weren't sure if people were going to come out, you know, because of safety reasons. But, you know, I think people really needed something like this, you know, to get out of the house. And like I said before, you know, to, you know, get dressed up, quote unquote, like how we see on this slide right here at the red carpet, and you know, to celebrate, you know, that we made it through the pandemic and celebrate culture and celebrate the arts. And yeah, that was really cool. And because it was also virtual, we wanted to make sure we had it accessible for people who maybe didn't feel comfortable coming out in person, or maybe just in general, someone who just, you know, is not someone who can come out to in-person events or couldn't make it for that weekend. We had it screening virtually online for the 7 days, the first 3 days of in person, then the next, you know, 4 or 5 days of that week, we had a screening as well. So people who maybe missed a certain block can watch it, can come back and watch it later on, or someone who, you know, didn't feel comfortable can come and watch the festival that way. And we had workshops online as well. And we had about, I want to say like 80 people watch virtually as well, on top of the 600 people that came in person. And, you know, getting to talk to people who were like really excited about this, and so many people had never been to a film festival before or didn't know what a film festival was. You know, many people didn't know like there's so many independent creators in this area and beyond that are making quality, you know, quality films. That people were like, oh, this looks like, you know, this looks like a, I don't want to say Steven Spielberg, right? Because he's like the prime, but they're like, this looks like something I would see on Netflix or I would see on Amazon. This looks incredible. Or like, you know, they're like, this whole event just seems like it's been happening for more than 1 year. Like this is your first year. So people were so supportive, and you know, they were just really excited about the whole experience. You know, the Klein where we had our festival, they were super excited as well. You know, because they haven't had big crowds like this. You know, because of the pandemic, even before. You know, it's kind of hard sometimes to get people out to things. So they were also really excited about that as well. We also got a couple of Housatonic Community College students that came out, and they were part of our Q&As. You know, we had 2 actors who led Q&As, and they were like so inspired that they wanted to be more than actors now. They're like, oh, I want to actually write a script. They're like, maybe we can work together to write a script or something. And I thought that was just like so like, I don't know, so beautiful. And it was something that we really was our goal, right? And even if it's only like 2 people out of the 600 that came that felt that way, that's pretty freaking cool in my opinion. And yeah, I guess what's next in closing, we're gearing up for year 2. Thanks for switching us live. We're gearing up for year 2 already. We have submissions opening up this Friday for next year. We're already in pre-production for year 2. We've already booked the venue for July 22nd through the 24th of 2022. We are keeping year-round programming going on. So we're working with a nonprofit organization called City Lights Gallery, and they have the annual Bridgeport Art Trail where we're screening some music videos to keep up with the arts theme throughout the year. We're doing a monthly film series, film club that's going to start early, probably in January 2022, where we're going to watch movies and critique them and bring in some guest speakers. We're also going to have another youth writing, screenwriting class in the spring. We're going to get some high school students to come in, and you know, we're going to teach them the basics of screenwriting. We had a couple that came in last spring in preparation of the film fest. We're going to do that again. And then, yeah, our scholarship for young artists is going to open up in October. So we'll get that out there and try to keep inspiring the youth and keep inspiring people to share their own stories. And that's pretty much it for the Bridgeport Film Fest. Thank you.
Thank you, Jason. That was really impressive. Scholarships, filmmaking classes, workshops, DJs. This sounds like way more than just a film festival. Sounds like a party. You guys gave people a reason to dress up, a reason and a project to work or a purpose during COVID. So it really does seem like something that's so much more than a film festival, truly impacting and inspiring the Bridgeport and much broader community. So congratulations on the project, and looks like there's so much more to come. Very exciting.
Thank you
and we'll
so
have
much.
you hang on too for some Q&A in a little bit, which
Sure.
reminds me, if you guys have any questions for Matt or Jason so far, just stick them in the queue in the chat feature, and we'll get to them here in a little bit.
Thank you so much,
Now,
Emily.
thank you, Jason. And now for our next speaker, speaking of making an impact on your community, we are so excited to have Kimora Leela Harrington with us. She is a mother first in all ways that a mother is. She's the owner and operator of Kimora's Cultural Corner and is an active cultural humility presenter and educator who began her formal career as a teacher for the City of Hartford's early learning centers in the early 90s. Through the years, she has worked with numerous organizations and groups committed to marginalized communities and ran a mentoring program for queer youth in out-of-home care for 15 years. Kimora is a member of the National Black Justice Coalition's Leadership Advisory Council, a founding member of CT Black Women, as well as current member and former chair of the City of Hartford's LGBTQ+ Commission. Her personal life mission includes creating spaces where families are free to love their children, which is the guiding principle of all of her work. So impressive. Thank you for joining us, Kimora, and I'll switch over to your slides to talk to us about the Sterling Street Sanctuary and Nature Reserve.
There we go. Okay, now I'm unmuted. So thank you so much, Emily. And I'm incredibly happy to be here having this conversation with the folks we're having this conversation with, because a big part of what that Sterling Street Sanctuary and Nature Reserve is, and a big piece of why it exists, is for voice, and is to create voice and lens and perspective in ways that folks don't always see it. So when Jason was speaking, he started off talking about Bridgeport, right? And when we're Connecticut people, we've got a lens and perspective. And I'm a Hartford person, and we hear things about Bridgeport that are not beautiful and wonderful. And we're here in the capital city, and we know that people hear things that are not beautiful and wonderful about our city. And so one of the things I'm always trying to do is figure out ways to share how amazing Hartford is, how amazing the human beings are who are here, and then to take us out of the place where, you know, there's always the them thing happening. So if they would only, what they need to do, and we realize that the cross-cultural conversations aren't happening. This is Connecticut, so we've got all these beautiful little fiefdoms, and everyone has their own world and their own silo, and we work really, really, really hard to keep the walls up between these silos and between these communities. So often the cross-cultural conversations and the cross-cultural solutions are not discussed as much as they possibly could be or should be. So this is Kimora's Cultural Corner. All of the work that we do falls under the umbrella of cultural humility. And back in the spring of 2020, we got a phone call. There is a 2-acre plot of open lands in the north end of Hartford. And what we've learned since then is the spot that we're using as the sanctuary is the only 2-acre plot of undeveloped land in the north end of Hartford. The north end of Hartford is an economically depressed community. We don't have a lot of money. There's not a lot of money coming in. And the money that comes in, very often the folks in the community don't have any say-so in how it's actually used. There are times when think tanks happen. There are times when community information gathering sessions happen, but we've got this fundamental stuff that gets in the way of that. So again, coming at this with this idea of cultural humility, I think many of us who do community work have found ourselves in spaces where the community knows that their job is to support the nonprofits in the community because those are the people who have access to the resources. And a big piece of what we're trying to do with our work, and definitely with the work at the sanctuary, is to shift that narrative. So if we can go to the next slide, you've got this, can we change? There we go. Okay, so this is a Toni Morrison quote, and this one hit as COVID hit, as we started to do our work, as we started to think about what our work was and what it was supposed to be. We realized that it was time for us, that as a nation, we were being traumatized, we were scared, we were in this weird in-between place. You know, I always love to say that in the in-between place, in the not knowing, that's where all the amazingness can happen, that takes us to all those places that we can go. But in order to get to that amazingness, right? And so we've got to understand and sit in this uncomfortable place, and artists create places for us to sit in that uncomfortable place. And a big part of that is because they can imagine places for us to go, right? And so we've got this piece of land, and we started off by doing bazaars. Actually, we started giving away bagels because everything shut down, and one of the bagel shops had hundreds of bagels to give away. So we every Friday collected bagels, and every Saturday in this new piece of land that we were thinking of and discovering and fantasizing about what we want to do with this land, we were giving away bagels. And people started coming by, giving things away. Some folks want to sell some stuff. And so we started the bazaar aspect. And while all of this is going on, I train in cultural humility, and George Floyd happened, right? And so we had a lot of people who had never put any real thought into race relations in the United States of America, their own personal responsibility to other human beings in their communities who don't look like them, and also an expanded idea of community. And one of the things that we did get is we found, not so much here in Connecticut, but as we watched what was happening around the country, we were seeing people in the suburbs realizing that they had a responsibility to what was happening in the cities, and also people in the cities realizing that there are pieces of media that are not going to go out of their way to share our truth with folks in the suburbs. So as I'm working with people, and as I'm meeting with people, and I'm talking to people about all of these issues happening in the city, I'm talking to beautiful, well-intentioned folks who are bright and brilliant in their own spaces, in their own silos, in their own little worlds. but there is so much missing about what the actual lived reality is in the North End, and what poverty looks like, and what stigmatization looks like. That there are beautiful answers that I like to call them happy hour answers. These wonderful answers that people were coming up with real life issues that affect us. We're missing so much, and we're going to get there. So we hold these Wednesday night community conversations where we bring in different people from all kinds of different places. And my frustration, we don't think enough about these issues, and there are not enough times for all of us with different fundamental values, different colors on our bodies, different socioeconomic levels, all of this stuff. There weren't real places for us to come together in brave space and really, really have these conversations. Add to that, meditation is important. I think everyone needs to meditate, and I can't stop moving. So a piece of the Labyrinth in bringing this beautiful place for contemplation and healing was meeting a community's needs as well as my own need, which is I need to sit and contemplate, and that's hard for me. What is a visual reminder? What is something that I can give my community and give the folks who I work with that says it's time to shut up, it's time to sit down, it's time to contemplate and think, and to do it with other people who don't look like us and sound like us. So if we can go to the next slide. This gets to the space. So you see us outstanding in our field, and that is me, that is Ann Go, an amazing artist, Olusanya Bay, who does mindfulness and is an artist and poet, and the ninja social worker, Chris. So we're out there in this space. What are we going to do? This day, that photo was taken on a day that we realized we're going to build a labyrinth, and it's going to go right here. And so we pulled together the Labyrinth project. Now, we're an LLC, and it's really important. We're doing this hybrid thing, and we're figuring out how to do this. We're figuring out how to serve community authentically without being a nonprofit. So not depending on a narrative that says, look at how pathetic our community is, please give to us. But coming with this idea of, we're friggin' awesome. You know what? We've got ideas, we've got thoughts, we've got know-how, we've got ingenuity. You know, we don't have money. We need money. And there's a whole very real reparations piece to this. But the show and prove thing has been an important part of what the business is. And so we depend on a Patreon giving program where people give us money, so like from $3 a month to $100 a month, people support us this way. And for this Labyrinth project, I knew it was a great idea, and I knew my community needed it. And all the people around me who I was talking to, they said this as well, but still got questions, right? So we hear about this match campaign that falls right in line with our work and the way that we do the work and the way that we inform community about what we do. And I say, no, if I can write a beautiful narrative and get someone to give me $8,000, that's nice, but that's not the work that we're trying to do. If I can meet with and talk to and be with my community, and together we can realize that we need this thing, and then together we can raise $3 each, $4 each, $20 each, we're going to get there. And that to me says a lot more about community buy-in. So we find this match grant thing, and it's beautiful because it allowed us to share stories. And it allowed us to tell people, look, this is what we say we do. Give us money, and we're going to show you that we can do what you gave us money to do. So we collected the money. It was wonderful. We bought a beautiful Labyrinth plan. It was wonderful. You see that we had the space. It was all there, and then construction got in the way. So if we can go to the next slide. And like I said, that our way of doing everything is to say, show and prove, show and prove, show and prove. Look at what we do. We show and prove, and this is what we give community. This is what community builds for community, and this is what it can look like. So we had the money, and we hadn't found folks to build the Labyrinth yet, and we're getting ready to go on our Black Art Heals tour. And our Black Art Heals tour happened in November of 2020 because, again, COVID was here, people were scared, and we hold these weekly community conversations, and we say things that are kind of awesome and interesting, and we pull all kinds of different people together, and people love what we have to say. And so we're hearing about this importance of the KCC. And I think Kimora's Cultural Corner is incredibly important, but I also know and believe that there are amazing human beings throughout this country doing great stuff who don't get the bandwidth that they should. Again, as a Black queer person from Hartford, I know how much of our stuff really does get out there, and I also know what doesn't get out there. So we went on tour knowing that we were going to definitely stop at Oyotunji Village in South Carolina, which is an Afrocentric Yoruba village here in the United States of America that exists in South Carolina, holding on to who we are as African people, as melanated people. And we get down there and we do the tour, and it's beautiful. And, you know, we visit all the different shrines for the Orishas, and then our visit is over. And the woman who's the executive director of the town, of the village, is giving us a tour. And we, of course, know that our obligation, again, what is our motto? We give to receive in order to give again. This, you know, this is what our work is. It's very, very symbiotic. It's very, very relational. And we were visiting Oyetunje Village. We were definitely receiving from Oyetunje Village. So what is it that we're going to give you? And so they're walking us around, showing us what they need to do and what they need to build. And Maria says, oh, well, you know what? We need stuff, but really more than anything else, we need the supplies and the money to buy the supplies, because my king builds. Yep, he's a mason and he builds. And that was when all of this came together. So these slides are actually, one of them, you've got Chad from Ebony Horsewoman on his horse. It's wonderful. Like, we've got this amazing horse stable in the north end of Hartford that no one knows about, that does some of the most amazing equine therapy and just works with our kids, works with our adults, does great stuff. They're down the street. And so as we're building this, we had the Black Cowboys come and visit us, and they got to meet the work crew, which is the king, the Oba, and his family and his council, who came and physically built this for us. And as we did it, we documented the entire thing with photos and with videos. And again, documenting and very loudly proclaiming to our community, we did this with the $3 you gave us. We did this with the $10 you gave us. And it was a lot of fun to play with that money. So patronosity, that match grant was wonderful. And there was this one place, this one glitch where all of the donations had to happen online. Well, we are marrying all of the different communities that we work with, meaning that many of the folks in the communities that we work with don't have access and don't know how to use technology. And as I'm talking there, I'm talking about some of our elderly white folks, as well as the folks who you might possibly be thinking of who don't regularly have access to technology. And then the folks who are not comfortable and don't feel safe giving all their credit card information to a website. So we were figuring out how to collect the money at the space. When people were coming on Saturdays to visit us, we were collecting money. And then we had a volunteer who very nicely collected all of that money and did a nice match grant donation. But it felt really good to be able to demonstrate the large number of human beings who were a part of this project. And then if we can go to the next space, when we talk about the importance of creating lens, creating perspective. This is us right after we finished building the Labyrinth. This is the work crew with Mama Nanzi. And there's my son Isaiah sitting in the Labyrinth and meditating. And there's a bunch, I only threw up a few of them, but we've got a bunch of photos of folks just in there, because it was very, very important that we share with the community that the Labyrinth is for everyone. The Labyrinth is never locked. We've pulled groups in to invite them to walk by themselves, and then told folks to come when we are not there. So we're opening it up. It's a sacred space, it's a healing space, it's a beautiful space, and it's not locked off from community. And in a community that understands and has been trained to understand that if there's something beautiful, it's not for them, a very important piece of the work has been all the places where we can show all of the photos of what this looks like, and then stepping into true community. So we talk about the importance of stepping into brave space. This Labyrinth is here as brave space. And if we can go to the next slide, this is where we are. And this is what we believe, and this is where the Labyrinth came from. We understand and know that all of society's problems are in our own hands. All of the socioeconomic shit, I'm sorry, didn't mean to swear, but all of the nonsense that goes along with humanity. So again, what gets in the way of families being free to love their children? What gets in the way of all of this? A whole bunch of stuff, but if we take time and think about it, the answers are in our hands. And the folks from Simsbury with a whole bunch of advanced degrees and a whole lot of capital and not much interaction with people living in poverty for generations have a lot to contribute and have a lot that they need to learn. Those of us who have lived in poverty for generations and have figured out how to navigate it have a whole lot of answers and a whole lot of great ideas on what can work and should work, and we don't have access to capital, and we're not exactly sure of what all of the issues all over the place are. So the Labyrinth is a place to really pull together the community work with the people who we work with directly who live in the North End, as well as some of the cultural humility work that we do with people who come in and pay for cultural humility workshops, et cetera, getting ready for that DEI, that diversity, equity, and inclusion work. But what is it that we need to do when we talk about cultural humility? It's a lifelong process, and we need to be willing to step into places where we talk to people who truly are fundamentally different. If we can go to the next slide. I'm incredibly proud of the fact that we are doing this, right? And so we have many informal spaces for people to come in and use the Labyrinth, and that's been happening a lot lately. That's been beautiful, the way folks just happen to show up at the Labyrinth and understand. So the Labyrinth that we built, if you are familiar with Labyrinths, ours is different. Ours is not a traditional Labyrinth, it's a ceremonial Labyrinth, meaning that there's two mirrored paths, with the idea and understanding that two very different people are going to walk into it and come together afterwards at the end to have a conversation. And as you see from the photo here, that was our first. So we've got the Harvest Moon Labyrinth Walk. And up here in that top right corner, those are a whole bunch of program participants, folks who have come to KCC workshops and classes and courses around cultural humility, around whiteness, around disparity, queer issues, and then some of our core team and definitely our healing artists were there to have conversation and walk the Labyrinth and then have conversation. And it's been wonderful seeing what that looks like. So one thing that I think is incredibly important as we talk about what this project was and what it is, I'm an opinionated human being with a lot of ideas. And it's incredibly important that all of the opinionated human beings with all of the ideas gather together with a whole lot of other folks who might not be as loud as us, but who have in some ways thought about the issues that we're dealing with in ways that we haven't, who have nuanced spaces where, you know, we've all thought about these same issues, but they've got a different understanding. So how do we create a space where all voices can share space and truly bring themselves in? I've found, and I'm seeing it, so this is the premise, and we're seeing it, when we get folks coming from very different places, intentionally choosing to walk the Labyrinth together. And we've had folks step up at the beginning of the Labyrinth who don't know each other, who've never met each other before they've ended up there on the lands. But coming together in that sacred, beautiful space, walking the Labyrinth, and then coming back and having conversations. Whatever happens from there is great. So we're this beautiful hub, right, where all this stuff can happen. But it's what happens after people get together at our space and then take it out, which is where the beauty is. And that's what we've built here. If we can go to the last slide, there's one more left. And this is what we do. So cultural humility sounds great and sounds wonderful. And the Labyrinth and the Sterling Street Sanctuary and Nature Reserve gives us a place to step into this lifelong commitment to self-evaluation and self-critique. Everyone who steps into this space and chooses to be here, we all have this desire to fix power imbalances where none ought to exist. But how do we do this, right? And so going back to that thing, that what I was just saying about voice and lens and how that works, how do we fix power imbalances when the folks who are in power know that their voice is valuable, and the folks who are not in power have been taught that their voice is not important? We think that we've come up with at least one tool to get us there. And develop partnerships with people and groups who advocate for others. And this is happening at that space because, again, it's an intentional space that was built not to say that we have the answers, but to say this is a very intentional place for people who are committed to finding the answers to come together and start contemplating what will help get us to the answer. And I hope that in there, I hope folks really heard that I'm not saying come to the Labyrinth, walk the Labyrinth, and then you'll have all the answers. But again, it's a visual reminder, and it's a place for us to walk in and step into. We've got some big issues. There's a whole lot of us who are affected by these big, huge issues. How do we begin to address them? How do we begin breaking down the walls? This is one way to do it. And that is my presentation. So thank you all so much.
Thank you, Kimora. That was amazing. Even just from the few photos that we can see from the Labyrinth, it looks like you're really creating a space for needed conversations, healing, learning about cultural humility, and having cultural exchange. So that's really, really cool. Thank you for sharing. Thank you to all three of our speakers for showing what they put their heart and soul into during this COVID pandemic and beyond, much more than I have to show for myself. So hats off to you guys for all of that hard work. And I want to invite our three speakers to join back in, share their cameras for a quick Q&A. We've got about 6 minutes left, and I've got a couple questions teed up. Love to have more questions in there. If you've got them for our speakers, feel free to put them in the chat. So first, this is for really all three of our speakers. What advice would you give some of our other community leaders who are on this webinar and might be listening to a recording subsequently, for going through the process of really pulling together a project and making it happen, and getting funding for that? Do you have any advice?
Sure, I can start. I think, one of the keys for us was when you're headed down the path to try and make something happen financially, you're likely to have a batting average of about 100, meaning like 1 out of every 10 opportunities that you pursue are going to work out. And when it doesn't work the first 3 times, that's not a sign that this is a failure waiting to happen. It's a sign that you just haven't found the right match yet. So like, we tried multiple paths to get our solar panels done, and we couldn't make it happen, but we kept persisting. We kept using our networks to see what options were out there, and we found a path with sustainable CT. Now maybe you'll cut to the chase and talk to sustainable CT right away, and you'll save yourself a lot of time. But for us, we had to just be persistent. I think that's, if you're trying to do anything, any sort of project like that takes some funding, there's some patience there, which is hard to find sometimes when you really just have a clear vision of what needs to be done.
I'm gonna parrot that just a little bit, in that give it time. If this group doesn't believe in your vision, that's okay. Go find the next group. Go find the next group. But be ridiculous and know that there's more than enough money out there, and there's more than enough resources out there. Give it time.
Agree, both of those. And don't be afraid to just reach out and ask people for help. Like, we got so much help from people who were just willing to read different grants. I was like, I'm not really a grant writer, I'm gonna do this, right? But people were like, okay, I'll help you. What do you need? What do you need? What do you need? So that was a huge thing, like, to rely on other people. Don't be afraid to ask for help. Because help, just like money is out there, help is out there as well.
Awesome, thanks guys. Question for Kimora: what is a labyrinth? And I just figured out how to spell it, so that's a tricky hurdle, but what does it mean?
Okay, I'm about to sound negative. This is that place that I don't like to say. What a labyrinth is not, but it's not a maze, right? And so as we think about who we are and what I think many of us need, there's no place to get lost in a labyrinth. And I use myself as an example of my community all the time, and I'm a human being who's got huge trust issues, right? And so stepping out in faith and stepping out in trust is an important thing, and it's hard for me. In a labyrinth, a traditional labyrinth, as I said, ours is a little different, but a traditional labyrinth has one way in and one way out, okay? And so you go on that walk and you don't have to pay attention to where you're going. And that labyrinth is gonna turn, it's gonna twist. When you get to labyrinths, there are short walks in the labyrinth, there are long walks in the labyrinth. I like the long walks on the outside. That's where I think the big thoughts, and there's the little thoughts, right? And then like, I get really excited about this stuff. So please, you don't want me to really talk about labyrinths, but they're created to take us on a journey of contemplation. One of the beautiful things, this is where I get fun, right? A labyrinth, you go on that first walk and it gets you right close to the center, and then you turn, and then you're all the way on the outside again. You thought you were at the center, right? No, but guess what? You're gonna end up at the same place, and it's going to be okay. So also bringing all of us together is incredibly important, right? And so if I were to talk about the importance of labyrinths in Celtic culture, and here in New England, we've got a whole bunch of Congregationalists and Episcopalians who are going to be like, yep, let me tell you how the Druids use them, and this is exactly where they belong. And if I were to talk about African labyrinths, we would talk about divination and what that looks like to call in the Orishas, which actually were called in as we built our labyrinth. But one of the beautiful things that I love about labyrinths is it's this ancient, I'll call it ancient technology, right? But it's this ancient technology that brings us together to think and contemplate, and you can't get lost. And there's not a wrong way to be in a labyrinth. And that's my short, and believe that's my short labyrinth.
Thank you. That was very revealing. One final question for Jason. How would someone find be able to watch the short films, the 71 short films that were featured in your festival? Is there a way to see that at this point?
Yeah, so there are some that are online through the filmmakers, but a lot of the filmmakers are still doing the whole festival circuit, so they're not available all online yet. But we do have links available on our website, and we can let you know which ones that you can stream somewhere else. For sure.
That would be great. Yeah, we could send those out with this recording. That would be awesome.
Yeah.
And just a quick follow-up. I think you mentioned it a little bit about why Bridgeport for the film festival is being really an image change that you're trying to make. And so I think we can connect you with the question, the attendee with that question to follow up a little bit more since we're at time. But I do want to thank you guys for joining us, for sharing about yourselves, sharing about a problem that you're trying to solve in your community, and sharing about your project. And hopefully up on the screen there's a little bit more information now about the Resourceful documentary series. That's a short film about these projects and other projects that have come through the match fund. That's filming on October 2nd, this Saturday. Please check it out, and you can also stream it on demand if you like. So with that, I'll close the webinar. Thank you guys very much for joining us, for sharing. We appreciate it, and thanks for spending time with us today.
Thank you all.